Tyson's Corner. It used to be just a gas station. And then it evolved into the second largest retail area in the East Coast, second only to Fifth Avenue. It has been the subject of a great deal of discussion and debate over the congestion that is causing or going to cause. Unfortunately, Tyson's is banded by a ribbon of concrete and asphalt in all directions. It is bounded on one side by the Beltway and by another side by 66 and still the third side by the Dulles Toll Road. And each one of these impervious concrete and asphalt ribbons that are like a girdle to Tyson's have only a few entryways in and out. And so everybody that comes into Tyson has to go through one of those small openings. And similarly, going out, they have to go through one of the small openings. That causes tremendous queuing. The metro is going to come in and provide an alternative to this. And the current thinking is that the metro stops would have parking at the station, which compounds the problems. In the queue that you take to get to the station, you'll then be able to park. And you'll get on the train, you'll get off the train, then you'll have to go through a queue to get off and on the train, then you'll have to get into a queue to get out of the parking garage. Then that will put you into one of the very thin roads that will queue you again. And so the amount of queuing that you'll go through when you're in Tyson's Corner will result in considerable lost or wasted hours. But the future is yet to be. And so again, the plan that I did for Tyson's Corner in '92 had set up for a major activity center, about 3 of them somewhere in Tyson's. To be chosen by the developers themselves, self-determined. And then they had some satellite centers that would be where you'd put the off-street parking and a collector bus that would move from sub-center to a major center. And the concept for this was developed with an UMTA study that said UMTA gave Tytran, the civic group that was involved in the future of Tyson's transportation. And they gave them a grant to see what they could do to improve circulation in and about Tyson's. In order to address that, I convinced the governing board, the advisory board, the first thing they had to do is know what Tyson should look like. At that point, the master plan for Tyson's Corner, the county master plan, land use plan, and an asterisk. It said future study required. And so that was all we knew about the future of Tyson's. So we elected to try and develop one. And this was accomplished by a series of interviews and talking and walking. Interviews from the top to the bottom, to the CEOs, to the guy that was operated the shoe repair shop, and probably more enlightened than any of the guys I talked to. And so from there we came up with the idea of Tyson's would become the center of Northern Virginia, or Fairfax County. And but one thing it lacked was any of the hot spaces that would give a place real identity. In New York City, for example, Fifth Avenue on Easter has an Easter parade. They also, people would go there for shows. And other cities in the country that had draws would be for a stadium of some kind, an athletic stadium. And that would be the kind of thing that would give Tyson's a distinctive difference. And the one thing really lacking in Tyson's at that time was people. Nobody lived in Tyson's. And so a couple of little complexes did have housing, but they weren't connected to the rest of Tyson's. The Ramada, or the condo, it had a gate around the whole thing, and you could not go from one piece of that area to the other without going through the gates and the fence. And there were no reasonable sidewalks anywhere in Tyson's Corner. And so you're committed to being in a car, and the car was committed to the few narrow streets that they had, not a grid pattern, but just a couple of streets. On an airplane trip that I had one time with a private plane, we flew in and at rush hour. It was enlightening to see the expected directions of taillights leaving Tyson's. It was also surprising to find that there were little circuitous routes going through Great Falls and Vienna with red lights showing there's other ways to get in and out of Tyson's if you know your way around. The thing that was more interesting is that the internal streets in Tyson's at rush hour just had solid lines of red. They were bumper to bumper, one end to the other. And so the future of Tyson's was dependent upon an alternative to the private automobile, and that's where the train was offered. Bring the train from, through, and to. That is discussed in another YouTube that describes when somebody said that the train was an obit for the train. It was a stake through my heart because of all the work I put into that. And so the other thing that is so about Tyson's is there's one identifier, that is what we call the shopping bag building, and that kind of sets the theme for what Tyson's is, just shopping. And then they have the premier, which is covered in another YouTube called Hype. But the issues that relate to the future of Tyson's are similar to the ones that will relate to the future of the Wheelie Avenue station in Reston, where people are looking for identity and diversity. The one thing that is not noted very often in Tyson's is that there was a neighborhood behind the VDOT building that was called Wolf Trap. It was land that had been given to the slaves when they were freed, and they were in small little chunks, little wedges. And the county tried an urban renewal project that said, can we assemble that land and make it worth something for the owners? And the owner says, we don't trust anybody. We want to keep our land. So that Wolf Trap neighborhood is still there, and they have an identifying school there called Freedom Hill School. That is now a diversified neighborhood, so there are people living nearby, just not in. The future of Tyson's is somewhat constrained about the fact that it is now getting long in tooth, and that means that the retail places there are getting older and losing some of their pizzazz that they had at one time, and so is the infrastructure getting old. The roads are 40 years old, the bridges are 40 years old, and concrete has a shelf life of about 40 years, which will be covered in another missalette that I'll produce later. Thank you very much.